This is your second video for function value notes. Here we're going to be plugging in expressions, so you should expect to get an expression as your final answer. There will be times, like in number 6, where I combine an expression question with numbers, but for the most part these are all expressions. The important thing here is to realize that you're plugging in this entire thing in for x. And you kind of already have done this, but we're going to refresh this again. Some things you can do for strategies when you go to plug it in. Wherever you see an x, so we're going to do g of a plus 4, we're replacing x with a plus 4. You may want to put like a nice big parentheses where you're going to be plugging it in. Because you are plugging in an expression, it gives you the space. Make sure you're not missing anything before you then go plug in the a plus 4. In fact, I probably should have put that in this color so you can see it. So that whole thing is replacing x. And then from here, you're just going to do some basic algebraic simplifying, like a distributing, negative 2a, minus 8, minus 3. And you should show some steps here just to make sure you don't make any math errors when you're going along. Same thing with the x minus 3. That's going to replace x. Sometimes that confuses people because it looks like it's the same variable, but x minus 3 is replacing again where you have that parentheses. So you have to ignore the fact that x is repeating itself, and you're going to put your x minus 3 in place of wherever x was. Then you're just distributing again. Be careful with the negatives. We'll make that a plus 6. And that's our final answer. So you'll notice you're not getting number answers at the end. That's okay. You shouldn't expect to. You don't have to do any extra simplifying with these, like a factoring or anything like that. You just have to get to the final answer. Here we're going to be careful. This will be similar to one we looked at in the intro activities. We're going to be plugging into two spots for x, here and here. So just be careful, make sure you do that. Especially if the variable stays the same, there tends to be more mistakes when that happens. But if you start out, put in the parentheses where x's are, and then replace them, that's a great idea. Now here we are going to be doing a FOIL, because this really means m minus 3 times m minus 3. I'm going to do that all in one shot. So we're going to FOIL, then distribute. That's very important. Going from this step to this step. FOIL first. They both start with the letter F. So that's an important step to take. Do not distribute the 2 until after. So we'll get m squared minus 3m minus another 3m. Now you can combine that right away and make that 6m. Honestly, it doesn't really matter. And you can do a couple of these steps in a slightly different order, but the FOILing is important to do before distributing. Ooh. There's my one mistake for the day. Hopefully it's the only one. Alright, so we're going to distribute. We'll get 2m squared minus 6m minus another 6m if I'm doing it this way. You are going to combine at the end, so if you don't combine there, that's okay. Again, if it makes more sense to you to combine this into the 6m right away, that's good too. Now just be careful when you're combining like terms here. Make sure that you combine all the m's together and then all the numbers together. Sometimes just a quick underline of one of the variables or the other helps. So you're going to get minus 16m here, and then plus 35. These are usually the ones that people struggle with because of the amount of steps in here, but these are all Algebra 1 skills that you kind of have to go back and refresh. If there are some of these skills that you're having difficulty with, that's the time to make sure you come in outside of class to kind of go over them with me. Alright, last two questions are going to alternate between a numeric one and an expression. What I'm going to recommend for these is do them separately, get your two answers, and then add them, subtract them, however you want to do it. So we're going to find f of 2 first. You can do this all in one shot. I feel like that tends to confuse people when they do it that way. So we're going to plug in get f of 2. So plug in 2, we'll get our answer of 14. Then we're going to plug in negative 3 to the g function. 5 minus 4 times negative 3. And we'll get an answer for that of 17. You may want to even rewrite the original problem if that helps you. So f of 2, we'll replace that with 14. G of negative 3 was 17. So you're just kind of taking these answers, bringing them down, adding them together. Adding is always easier than when you get subtracting. I could put it multiplying, dividing, any operations in between there. But I would do each piece separately and then put together your answer for those. Same thing with subtraction and with the expressions. So here we're not plugging anything in, so we can actually just replace f of x with its expression of 3x squared plus 2. So that's the expression for f of x. Now, the minus sign and what comes after is important. Because we're subtracting an entire expression, this is another case where you're going to want to put a parentheses. This expression goes with g of x. So we'll take the g of x expression, put it in here. It's really important that you have parentheses because of the subtraction. We're going to need to distribute that negative sign in before combining like terms. So it will be minus 5x, minus 5 plus 4x. And then the only two things that are combining are the 2 and the minus 5. So we're going to have 3x squared plus 4x minus 3. And that's descending order that I put that in. You'll tend to see that we'll put a lot of the stuff in that order, so it makes all the stuff we're going to do in algebra later on in the year easier. Alright, so that's going to be it for your video notes. We'll complete the rest of the notes in class. Make sure that you have everything copied down and you have any questions ready for class time that you can ask before working on some of these examples.